Good evening, everybody. This is Ryan back with Ryan's Random Podcasts, critically acclaimed by yours truly, Ryan. I've been reading a book, I read a book called The Quiet Room, and it was a book about a lady who grew up in Scarsdale, in Westchester County, where I live, where I'm familiar, and she had schizophrenia. And the story was very interesting. It was about all her life journeys and all the, things that happened as a result of having that mental illness, and how at the time, back in the 80s, when she was younger, there really wasn't all the medication that we may have today, and she finally got a test drug that was coming to America, and it worked great. It worked wonders. It did amazing things for her, and it was a pretty nice ending to that story, even though the journey was kind of hard to read with everything that happened to her. But it was a great book. I definitely would recommend the read. And anyway, one of the reasons I started getting into some books similar to that, about people's stories, people's lives, because I'm interested, not just with the mental illness that she had, but like in general. I like to read about people's lives and people's thoughts. That's why I read blogs and things that I'm interested in the newspaper, because I like to hear people's thoughts and feelings on things. And I like to try to dissect it. And I thought, what would be a doper career than going back to school right now and getting my PhD in mental health counseling? I'm not sure if that's something I'm going to do or not, but it's definitely a door that I'm not closing. The only issue is, and I talked about this on other podcasts, getting back to a little bit political, economical problem that I have with all this, is it's wonderful that I want to go back to school, but where the hell would I get the money to go back to school? So I started looking. Now, obviously, schools range in the cost, but you can go to a state school or a city school and probably spend a lot less than you would at a private institution, maybe like Iona or Fordham or whatever. But I happened to look into Pace University, and that's out in Pleasantville. And they have a program. It's exactly what I would want to a T, to get my PhD in mental health counseling. I'm not even 100% sure I could get into the program. I think I can. I'd have to apply, but before I even do that, I was thinking about, further steps, like how much does it cost, things that really do matter if I can or can't afford to do it. So the 3 years would be $67,000 and some change. It's a lot of money, people. Am I going to do that right now? I'm not even sure I could get that student loan right now. I'm not even sure that they would, if I got a half scholarship. I mean, there's a lot of questions, but I'm not even 100% sure where these people think like the money comes from, and how people can afford this type of schooling. It would be great for me to get into a career like that I would really enjoy. I feel like I'd be doing good things, and I wouldn't, it's not one of those jobs where you really care, am I making the big bucks? I mean, like, I'm making a difference, I'm making money. That would be my goal. I want to help make a difference and enjoy my career. And that is an interesting option, to go back to school. But I guess one of the big points I'm bringing up here is that this country and this whole thing with school being like going to college is pretty much necessary to get into a stable corporate job or anything like it. But we can't tell 18-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds coming out of high school that they have to be choosing their future in college, like what they want to study. People don't know at 18 years old, and people don't have the money or the overall knowledge of what student loan debt is. And it's not really fair. I think, first of all, schools are outrageously overpriced. Education is key, but I'm one of those big supporters, love me or hate me. I'm one of the big supporters of, cheap college, affordable college. It doesn't have to be free. I mean, I liked Bernie Sanders' idea for people that had $200,000 or less a year in salary to go to college for free. If their families made less than $200,000 a year, they'd get to go to a city or state school or something for free. I think that was his plan, and that's really cool. But there comes a point where wouldn't everybody just want to go to college, and then wouldn't there be an overflow of applicants and not enough college room for all those people? And so I'm kind of on the fence that it should be something. You should have to pay, but you shouldn't have to pay so much to learn and to give back to the society that you live in. It shouldn't burden you for the rest of your life, but it does. And my mother was actually texting me pictures of things and what they cost back in the day. So, for example, this was a 1971 cost of living chart. And so a new house, I guess these are averages, $25,200. The average income was $10,622. So if you're just looking at that, people basically made almost half per year of what their house would cost. For us to do that in the economy in a decent neighborhood around here nowadays, I don't know, say you get a $400,000 house, cheapest around here, $350,000, $400,000. That means you got to be making about $200,000 comparatively. That's not really the scenario going on nowadays. I don't think that everybody that has a $200,000 to $400,000 house is making $100,000 to $200,000 a year. So that's interesting. A new car back then cost $3,560. A new car nowadays, I think the cheapest is a Ford Fiesta, I think. But I think that's $13,000 or $14,000. So cars have basically tripled and quadrupled. But I guess so have incomes on average. I would say an average income, start out nowadays is 50, 60, 40 to 60, something like that. Average rent was $150. Now that, I don't know exactly where this was taken from, but $150 a month, yikes. I mean, compared to nowadays, studios, you can't even, what? Cheapest studio you could get around here is like $700-800, and it's probably shitty. Movie ticket was $1.50. $1.50 for a movie ticket. I spend $13 a movie ticket now. It multiplied by 13. Tuition to Harvard was only $2,600 apparently. That's interesting. Gasoline was 40 cents a gallon. When I was younger, I remember it being somewhere in the 190 range, I think. In the ones, though, which was pretty cool, comparative, to now. I mean, gas isn't terrible right now, but I get diesel, so my gas can range from $2.59 maybe out in Jersey to $3.60 here in New York. So that's kind of wild. It was 40 cents a gallon for gas back then. U.S. postage stamp was 8 cents. Ground coffee was 98 cents a pound. Eggs were 45 cents a dozen. Ground hamburger, fresh ground hamburger, was 62 cents a pound. And fresh baked bread was 25 cents a loaf. That's pretty wild. In 1972, I have a picture here of a McDonald's menu. They still have some cheap shit at McDonald's, but it was just interesting. A shake was 35 cents. A chocolate shake was 35 cents. Compared to around $3 today. A filet of fish was 48 cents. A large order of fries was 46 cents. A hamburger was 28 cents. The quarter pounder with cheese was 70 cents. It's just, it's interesting. Times have changed so much, and I think that, it's, going back to the school thing, like, it's wild. I can't even consider, I did get my bachelor's degree, which is already a blessing. Many people don't even go to college, really, and have the opportunity to get those degrees. But I thank God I did. But I think it would have been easier if I knew, at 21 when I'm graduating college exactly what I wanted to do, so that I could have gone into a master's program or get a PhD or whatever. If I wanted to rethink my first 4 years in college, maybe, like, my point is, at 18 years old, how do you know what you want to do for the rest of your life? You don't. A lot of people don't even use I bet if you asked any of your friends that went to college what their degree was for, and then followed up with what their current job is, many people aren't in the same field that their degree was in. However, the degree did help them probably get into that door of whatever field they finally chose to go into. So it's all interesting stuff. Another book I actually read was Perfume, The Making of a Murderer, which is a really dope book. This podcast, I guess, is a mix of my rants on school and books that I've recently read, and now I'm going into this book. It's very random. Hence Ryan's Random Podcast. Perfume, Story of a Murderer, is about a man. I don't really know how to say the last name, but he's Jean-Baptiste. I want to say it's Grenouille or Grenouille. I'm not really sure. It's French of some sort. I'm not sure how to say it. But it's about this guy who, he himself doesn't have a scent, but he can smell things from miles away. Like, he would know that there's a fire burning from miles away. He could smell if somebody was coming towards him from miles away, or looking for him, and he started to create perfumes at first. So he worked for a master perfume maker, and he created these perfumes that smelled amazing. He made the guy wealthy, and then eventually cut ties. And every time he cut ties with somebody, something tragic would happen to them. Like, he just had a bad aura about him, kind of. And by the way, this is the book I think I spoke about with Carl once in a podcast. This is the book that Kurt Cobain said he read all the time. He said he read it maybe 10, 11 times, something like that, in that interview I watched of him on YouTube. And he said that he wanted to cut his nose off after reading the book. And he related to this main character because he was a loner and hated people. Like, people disgusted Kurt Cobain a little bit, and people disgusted Jean-Baptiste probably because he could smell them all the time. So anyway, he lived in Paris. He smelled people so much. He made these, he made a fortune for this guy. He hated the smell of people, and he hated, he was looking for different ways to make better perfumes and good smell. And he went to, like, the countryside type thing, like better air, whatever quality. And he started smelling freshness, and he, like, got away from the dirty smell of people, and he loved it. So he basically stayed away for a while and hid in a cave from everybody. Tried to get as far away from the scent of a human being as possible. He later decides to get back into the community. Long story short, he wants to make a perfume of the best scents in the world. Best scent in the world. And he describes the best scent as a scent that would be so powerful that he could write a letter to the Pope and spray it with the scent and say that he was the next Messiah, and the Pope would believe him. That's how powerful the perfume would be that he created. But to create the perfume, he needed to kill 25 people. They were young women that he said had the most beautiful scents in the world. So he took their scent, and he found some way to, like, take the scent off of them and put it into liquid form, which they talk about. The book is very interesting. It's a murder novel. It's not so much a horror novel because it's not like gruesome in its detail and the way it's written. It's actually kind of an easy read, kind of a fun novel to read if you're into that sort of stuff. I only read it because Kurt Cobain mentioned it, and I thought it was really cool. And then I actually read The Quiet Room, which I spoke about before, which got me on my rant about the cost of a PhD in a decent school here in middle class America, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. So I thought that was really cool, and I'm currently in the midst of reading a few books. I'm trying to, for the first time in my life, actually go through War and Peace. I'm on page like 50 something. By the way, I've had to like reread some. The chapters are short, but I've had to reread a few of them because there's like 4 families in this book in Russia that during the time of I'm only on page 50, but for what I understand, it's these families in the time where Russia and Austria were fighting off Napoleon, and it's like all their stories and emperors and wealth and this and that, and it's actually cool. I've never read it before. This is the first attempt at it. It's over 1,400 pages. Not sure how long that will take me, especially since I have to like reread some of the chapters to make sure I have all the names right and who's related to who and what's what, but it's challenging, and I find that fun, and that's like why I am promoting like reading. I think it's good for your soul, it's good for your brain. I'm also reading the Aesop Fables, which is kind of dope. I'll follow up on that more when I do read more of it, but it is something I'm reading. And I'm also reading another book called Manic. It's about somebody, kind of like Quiet Room, another story of somebody who went through something similar, which is kind of cool. And Alec Baldwin has a memoir that I really want to read because I'm a huge Alec Baldwin fan. I love that he makes fun of Trump so well. I know that's getting old, but it never gets old to me. It's kind of funny. And I'm just kidding. And I know that's a hot topic. People are happy or mad at him for that. And that has nothing to do with anything, though. But I do want to read his memoir. But again, this podcast was a little bit more about me just rambling about some of my most recent reads, how I related that back to school and going to school for a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD and or all of that. And I think that this country, in terms of school and in terms of medical costs, like those are two fields. They're gonna, remember the housing crisis, the housing burst, the bubble. You don't think there's going to be a student loan crisis coming, or that we're already in the midst of, and you don't think that there is going to be a problem with people in our country having to go bankrupt because of medical costs. I think that that's going to happen and is currently happening. And a lot of people like to say, oh, these times we live in, well, they're really rough, but things are cyclical. Read up on history, read everything you can in history. Things are cyclical. They continuously happen. We continuously have power struggles. There's always somebody in control of some country who wants more power or more money or threatens another country, or, there's allies, there's enemies, there's always going to be problems. So, you don't have to watch the news every day and hear all the problems of the world, because there's always been problems. There always will be problems. Try to enjoy your life, and keep up on the news and the media, but don't dwell in it and become depressed by it. I've met a lot of people who I feel listen to news and get so involved that it actually affects who they are and their attitude. You can't let that all affect you so much, I know a lot of people that don't like that Donald Trump is president. It is what it is. Move on. he is the president, and respect that, and that's it. Just things like that. I think that people need to be more, accepting. I think that people need to have more love in this world, and there needs to be more peace, less war. But I digress, and who am I? Nobody cares for the words of a layman. They only want to hear the words from, a Beyonce or a President Trump or, TMZ or anywhere on the internet. People don't care to hear my thoughts per se, but I'm still giving them because of the small group of people that may care and because I care. This was my random podcast for today. I hope you enjoyed. Everybody, have a good night and take care. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please have a wonderful night. Take care. Good night.